And with apologies, I have Hazel and Bronwyn, and Susan's just connecting now, so that's perfect. Could I have a mover for those apologies, please? Thanks, Claire, and thanks, Marcus. All in favour? Contrary, no. That's carried. Disclosure of members' interests.
Yep, through the chair, item 8, Resthaven.
Resthaven, okay, that's fine. Thanks, Philip. And I don't think we need to exclude you from the room, but if you just keep, don't contribute to the conversation, that will be fine. No one else? Okay. Confirmation, late items. No. So we'll go on to confirmation of the order of the meeting. Apart from that small change with the break, Graham.
Just moving, sorry.
Moving with confirmation. Thank you. And a seconder, please.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Bruce. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. It's carried. Okay, moving on to confirmation of the minutes, which are on pages 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So if there's no changes to those, could I have a mover that they are a true and correct record? Thanks, Lou, and seconded Elwyn. All in favour? Contrary, no. That is carried. Thank you. Now, Hamilton Waikato Tourism 6-monthly report. And is Nicola with us?
If I can, just through the chair,
Yes.
Nicola is just trying to join at the moment in terms of coming on to the meeting. So she does also have a presentation that she was going to share. So there just seems to be some timing issues there with her trying to get on at the moment. So I'm not sure whether or not you want to go to another item or whether or not we wait for Nicola, who should be joining very shortly.
She's just joining now, Sally.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Sally. Hi, Nicola. Welcome to the meeting.
My apologies. Sorry, I thought I was later in the agenda. That's on me. Sorry.
Oh, no trouble at all. Your timing's pretty good, actually. We just got to you. So unless, sorry, Hannah, I see you as presenting the report. Did you want to just do a quick introduction? And
yes, if I may, thank you. So good afternoon all. I would like to welcome Nicola Greenwell, the Development Manager and the Interim General Manager of Hamilton and Waikato Tourism. She is here to present her 6-monthly report. So over to you, Nicola.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Nicola Greenwell, toko ingoa. I'm, as Hannah says, thank you, Hannah, for the lovely introduction, here as Development Manager, but more so presenting to you as the Interim General Manager of Hamilton and Waikato Tourism. Been around for a little while, so shouldn't be a strange face to some of you. So nice to see you all on Zoom. This is the Hamilton Waikato Tourism 6-month report, so covering July through to December last year. So it seems a little while ago, so we'll just reflect on what's been happening. I'm going to share screen because I do have some slides just to keep me on track and make sure that I'm covering all that I need to cover. So hopefully that's bounced up now. And of course you've got our report already in your agenda pack. So first up, because it is 6 months of last year and we're already, gosh, almost most of the way through March, I thought we'd just reflect on what those 6 months looked like. It's quite easy in this changing time to lose, I guess, what levels and colours and 0.3s and 0.2s we were at. So of the 6 months, July, we had a lot of freedom. we were out and we were living life and we were enjoying ourselves. And then, of course, Delta arrived on our shores, and that launched us all as a country into level 4 lockdown. I'm sure we all remember that. September, Auckland remained in level 4, and we were lucky enough to go down to level 3 and then to 2 and have 3 weeks of what was called level 2 Delta. So a little bit of freedom, which was really only short-lived, wasn't it? We were launched fairly quickly back into a level 3 in October and most of November. Well, that was part of Waikato, and I think Cambridge was skirting on being part of that first initial piece, and then was included a couple of weeks later, may have only been a week. So with having lockdown with our residents, our own residents who account for a lot of travel within our region, and Auckland, our largest domestic market, there's absolutely no doubt that there has been a massive impact on our visitation, which leads through into visitor spend and bed nights. Tourism, events and hospitality, all sectors have been gravely impacted. So just thought we should reflect on that. It's easy just to keep moving on and overlook where we've actually come from. So these figures are all in your data, in your report and agenda pack, but I thought it would be worthwhile just reflecting on these. These are the highlights for Waikato as a region, so not Waipa. I'll go into those next. Waikato as a region achieved $662 million worth of tourism electronic card transactions. Now that's different to, we used to talk about visitor spend from the old monthly tourism regional estimate data that comes out of MB. Those old data sets made an assumption and an estimate and a best guess, calculated guess, scientific guess on online spend and cash contribution as well. That's no longer available through MB. They provide this instead. So this is only electronic card at point of sale. So when we swipe our Visa, that's what comes through. So 662 million. They have given us the backwards data to 2019 on that same data set, so we are able to see the comparisons. So we're still maintaining around fifth place ranking in New Zealand and around 5% of that domestic spend, which is normal and pre-COVID levels as well. Guest nights, so that's 907,000 commercial guest nights in our region for the 12 months. So about 3.5% market share. So fairly in line with where we've always been. Overall regional occupancy rate was 35.7. So we were okay. The business event data that I've got here is only for Q3, so it's only 3 months of this 6-month report, unfortunately. The data has not come out in time for us. 128 business events hosted, hosting 12,000 delegates. Now we know that delegates who come to our business events on average spend more than our leisure market and often will return. The rest of that is in it's more New Zealand data and it's all in your pack. So I'm going to leave that one there. So for Waipa, these graphs are also in your pack, but I thought we'd touch base on these as well. Commercial accommodation at 38% occupancy for Waipa district. So these are hotels, motels, backpackers and holiday parks. At 38%, so New Zealand's average occupancy rate is 37. So just peaking up a little bit more than the New Zealand national rate, which is fantastic. 1.9 average nights stayed per guest, so that helps with the occupancy, and 149,000 guest nights there. And you'll recall that was of Waikato's 907,000 guest nights. The visitor spend there of the same tourism electronic card transactions is 131 million into Waipa. So you can see that while Waikato, we're sometimes doing okay as a region, Waipa actually pips that and is actually growing and is doing really well of our 6 districts. Okay. This next slide just reiterates all of the activity that we've been doing for the 6 months. So you've got paragraphs on most of these and details of these in your agenda pack. So while we've only had 1 month of the 5 with visitors able to travel. Our team have been still keeping very busy in activating the visitation and keeping Waikato and Waipa top of mind. You'll recall the Mighty Local campaign that we kicked off during lockdown, the original lockdown of 2020, was to activate our locals and getting out and supporting and buying food, beverage, supplies, whatever it might have been for lockdown locally. We've reinvigorated that in August to make sure that we're still keeping that message the same, loud and clear. Locals, please support local. That campaign continues now with some tweaks, even in red, that while we're in red, it is safe to travel. You might not feel comfortable getting on a plane or whatever it is, but it is safe to travel within our region and go and explore and see our local offerings, our tourism operators, and get out there and have, be in our hospitality venues and support our local operators. So that keeps going now. We've been checking a lot. I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I cover everything. During each of the lockdowns in red, we spend a lot of time, our team, on the phone and emails and connecting with our operators, just checking to see how they are. It's a little bit of a health check. How are you and how can we help? How can we support? Sometimes it's just helping them navigate how to access the subsidies available, but it's all with a view of supporting them, making sure that they're there for when we can have visitors very soon, that everyone's ready for that action. While we've had closed borders and we've got a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel now, our team do keep working within the international markets. We have not been ignoring that just because our borders are closed. So we've been doing quite a bit of training with travel agents, international travel agents, with travel media, making sure that Waikato and Waipa are still top of mind for them. So that keeps working. And with our border reopening, being announced in the last just couple of weeks, that has really been accelerated even further. We've got a lot of travel trade activity happening at the moment. We've talked before about STAP, so the Strategic Tourism Asset Protection Funding and the Tourism Reset Funding that central government issued to all RTOs. We maximised what we were able to apply for with both of those. And that's really helped to accelerate some of those key projects that we had in our Tourism Opportunities Plan previous. And it's helped to offset a little bit of our partnership money has been a little bit light in the last little while. Operators have not been able to help and contribute to our activity. So that those central government funds have helped to fill that gap as well and keep us working very hard for our region. That's really all that I wanted to go through as terms of a presentation and allow plenty of time for Q&As. So all that I really need to say at the end of there is thank you for your ongoing support. Our relationships with our funding councils is really appreciated and we appreciate your ongoing commitment.
Thanks for that, Nicola. I think we all appreciate it's been a very difficult time in this tourism sector, and we're looking forward to having this COVID wave go through and getting back to the international borders being open. Yeah, look, thanks for a very comprehensive report as well. And you've been busy over this period doing what you can. Do I have questions for Nicola? No? Oh, sorry, Mike. And then Liz.
Sorry, I've just got one question. Yeah, thank you for that, Nicola, and the full report also. I understand that the way the data is collected for the spend is obviously changed. From memory, and correct, and I could be totally wrong here, I think the last time we got a presentation, were we sort of ranked 4th in terms of tourism in New Zealand, or were we still 5th? I'm just trying to remember.
We often fluctuated between 4th and 5th, so it must be almost 4.5, I'm not sure. But depends on sometimes whether you break it into domestic or international. And at the moment, the data from MB, they prefer that we don't break it into domestic and international, for the reason being that a lot of returning New Zealanders have come into the country and are using their international bank card. They've come home with their UK bank card, using that to spend, and that is actually coming through as international spend, but it's actually not. So yeah,
true.
hope that helps.
Thank you.
Liz.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Hey, Nicola, thanks very much for all the support you have been giving to Waipa providers. I think sometimes I feel like you're a guidance counsellor, actually, because you're that calm voice at the end of the phone. And it's, I tell you what, when it's been obviously over 2 years now, and yeah, just that stability that you guys have provided, that sounding board for operators has been really, really appreciated. So thanks for the flipping into that other role, which I'm sure you never anticipated you needed to do. I guess the other thing I'm hearing now, and I'm experiencing personally, bookings are, we are busy. We are really starting to see lots of pickup now, conferencing in particular, events, and I think we are going to see a really good upcoming summer season, which is really pleasing. But I guess one of the things I'm just a bit worried about, I'm interested in your thoughts on, around Waipa in particular, our tourism providers dealing with COVID. So, you know, we are starting to see COVID seep through our staffing levels. Are you aware of any issues around businesses that, you know, just might be really struggling to keep up with the pace that's now apparent, and their inability to, I guess, perform because, you know, their own staff are struggling, or, you know, are getting COVID and having to isolate and get well? Is there something we should be or could be doing in that space, Nicola?
It's certainly something we could explore, Liz, absolutely. And you know, we've seen it across all sorts of business sectors, haven't we, with teams being either having COVID or having to isolate, and it's a tough time. And some of our tourism operators, I won't say a lot, some of our tourism operators did downsize their teams or haven't replaced team members through this journey. And now is the time to be replacing and recruiting and getting ready, match fit for the borders opening. And so there will be challenges, and there have been challenges. It will be a battle for a little while, but look, we're here to help and support. I don't have a magic answer really at the moment, Liz, but it's certainly something we need to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think just reach out, Nicola, if you as a council, you know, we have had sort of a COVID relief fund there. Not too sure how that may or may not work, but yeah, I guess just let us know if there's anything that you feel that we could be doing to, you know, to support in this space.
Okay, thank you.
Great, yeah, thanks for that. Okay, there's no further questions. Well, thank you very much, Nicola. And we have a recommendation on page 14. Do I have a mover, please? Thanks, Philip. And a seconder, Mike. Thanks very much. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hands, that's all good. Contrary, no, it's carried. Thanks very much, Nicola.
Have a good afternoon.
You too. Cheers.
Bye.
Okay, moving on to item 7, council controlled organisations. Is Yolanda with us? Yes. Hi, Yolanda. You want to introduce?
Yep. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. So this is, as in line with legislation, our council controlled organisations needs to submit their draft statement of intent annually to us, where we provide comments back to them, as well as their interim results as at the end of December. So we submitted a report, and after this I will give each of the entities an opportunity to present their draft statement of intent to you. At the end of that, we would need to come back as a committee to look at the response letters that we'll be sending to each of them. So, Chair, if it's okay with the committee, I'll hand over to the airport company to start off with.
Great, thanks, Yolanda. Yeah, Mark, I believe, yeah. Welcome, and floor is yours.
Thanks, Councillor Brown, and afternoon, Council, and Mayor Jim. Look, I've also got Scott Kendall joining me, who is our Group GM Finance. And look, this afternoon, you obviously have to hand our draft statement of intent and our accounts, the 6-month interim report results through to December. So we're taking those as read, and really we've just got 3 or 4 slides given the time to just give you a quick update on the RAL group. And look, firstly, it's been an interesting 6-month period, and we're just bringing up, if we can just go back a slide, sorry, Scott, just to the initial introductory slide. Look, it has been a very tough 6 months result trading for us. Ironically, though, July and December were record months, and we recovered very quickly after those, particularly Delta. The aeronautical business recovered very quickly. Scott will talk about this current 6-month period, which has been quite a different story. But look, overall, we were pretty pleased with the results for that 6-month period, given COVID. And yet again, I think we have seen, whilst we've had trading volatility with the airport, we've seen much more solid operations with the hotel, obviously as an MIQ during this period. And also the airport, the property investment and development strategy working very well. So if we go to the next slide, as I say, passenger traffic, the disruption was relatively minimal and sort of contained to about the first month or so after each of those periods of lockdown or level 3. And fortunately, that bounce back kept us there or thereabouts as at the end of December on track for our full year. The Terminal Resilience Project, most of you will be aware, of course, that we are in the middle of quite a significant redevelopment. So this is a $15 million project on the terminal. During this reporting period, it has gone very well. We're fortunate that most of the significant costs associated with the project were pre-purchased, and now we were operating on a relatively fixed term contract. So we've been relatively insulated in this period around costs, and the project generally was there or thereabouts on project. We are seeing some delays in January, February as a result of COVID hitting particularly the subcontracting trades. We're managing to keep the project moving forward, but we are probably now about 6 to 8 weeks behind. And we would expect to catch some of that up, but we now would expect to probably have the terminal finished in September or October of this year, when we would reverse the operations back into what was the original terminal. The finalisation of all the fit out is happening as we speak. All of the carpets, so the flooring, the bathroom tiles, ceiling tiles, all of those elements have been selected. We have engaged with Norm Hill, so there's a full cultural evaluation of the terminal, and we have engaged cultural artists to assist with the look and feel of the terminal, both internally and externally. And in fact, we have a major update to the board in early April just on that cultural narrative and how that will weave into the terminal design. Finally, on the northern precinct, you will be aware that late last year your council signed off the major transaction, which was really the trigger to submit the private plan change, which of course is with Waipa. That plan change has been delayed 2 or 3 weeks due to some late technical information arriving to our project team. But the intention is to submit the PPC either very late this week or early next week. And of course, we've been heavily engaged with your management team and with the independent commissioners, etc., that will hear that private plan change. So there's been a very big piece of work. We obviously have the memorandum of understanding signed and agreed with the Yates family. So we are bringing 130 hectares into the plan change application. Very comfortable with the engagement we've had, certainly with your council and with Waka Kotahi. in particular around the ITA and ensuring the transportation issues are dealt with. So we're in good shape to lodge that, and of course, as you will know, that process will take the rest of this year and into probably early next year. I'll now hand over to Scott.
Thanks, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. So thinking, I guess, looking ahead to what the next 6 months initially brings us for the balance of the financial year. I think, as Mark mentioned earlier, we came back really strong to have a record December, and that's flowed through January as well. Obviously, as the country moved to the red alert level and a number of events got cancelled through the past couple of months, we saw pretty well straight away about a 30–40% drop in passenger traffic. That has probably peaked at about a 50% drop, and we've seen the past couple of weeks a couple of steady increases and some really positive signs looking ahead into April for board bookings coming through. So I hope that the worst is behind us, and we see that sort of recovering pretty well back to normal sometime by 30 June. Yeah, and look, I think our forecasting as it is indicates we'll still get close to budget. So we'll certainly, the aeronautical business has suffered this year, the Delta outbreak, and then of course Omicron. But I think we've obviously had the benefit of the MIQ hotel that's continued on a bit longer than we thought. So that has that'll get us pretty well on with net square with budget. Although I use the analogy, it looks very different. What's gone into the blender and what's come out looks very different, but we still get the same result. So no concerns at all around working capital or anything like that at the moment. In terms of business continuity and critical services that we do, naturally the way particularly our critical services and rescue fire operate, they work in bubbles. And to date that we've been in a really good position. We've had good supply of rat testing things coming through, and we've had a good, I guess, safe workforce and very few case numbers to report. So no risk to continuity. We've done a lot of modelling around that. We could potentially have 60 or 70% absenteeism in our rescue fire service, and we'd still be at a point where we can cover all critical, all flights, all scheduled flights with a minimum level of cover. And that's without sort of needing to get exemptions or short-term absences. So really confident we're in a good position there. And certainly what we've seen so far is hopefully the worst is behind us. So Jet Park Hotels, you should be aware, hopefully early last month in February, this became the Mohiam Community Facility. So that was relocated from the Distinction Hotel in Hamilton City. It's been fluctuating between about a quarter full and half full with positive cases. So these are people where they cannot safely isolate at home due to household circumstances. So they're the hotel's available for that. That contract originally was for 31 December. And I know many of you will have heard through the media that in effect with the borders opening, MIQ is winding up rather quickly. We expect that our contract will take us partly through the winter. I guess there's some cautiousness at a central government level around outbreaks and that interacting with seasonal flu. So we're expecting that we will have the hotel contracted with as an MIQ facility, although not a border facility, through till about the end of June, at which time there'll be a brief outage for a couple of months. There's obviously still a few rooms that needed upgrading from when we took it over that we weren't able to complete before COVID. And the hotel's been used in a much more intense capacity in a much different way to how hotels and businesses to be used. So there's a few new furnishings, new beds, a bit of a spruce up that's needed. So that buys us a couple of months, and we're hoping to be back in the market somewhere around the end of September, early October, as another trading hotel, obviously to support the Waikato region in general, being located where we are between Hamilton and of course the two major towns in Waipa. Just in terms of our organisation and our people, we have seen the business evolve a little bit, and you're obviously aware of Northern Precinct, and that's quite a significant step change in the property. So we have, in addition to Mark and myself, we've just welcomed a new general manager for the airport. So Ben Langley joins us, having had a career with Sounds Air originally and more recently Ardmore Flying School. So Ben is replacing, many of you may know, Simon Hollinger, who's leaving us at the end of this week after 23 years with the airport company. So then also with property, we're recruiting a new general manager of property as well. So that is that's also quite an exciting evolution for us. We've had an in-house property team, but it's more around a project delivery. So this brings a greater degree of, I guess, strategic leadership to our property, and certainly to interact with the aeronautical business. We're seeing now property opportunities that straddle both aeronautical and commercial property interests. So that's a really good sign for us moving forward. Just in terms of staff wellbeing, we made the call last year to move to be a living wage employer. So now in the hotel, across our group, so particularly in the hotel and the airport retail space, we are now a living wage employer. And we're doing generally a lot more just around staff wellbeing and development and things now. So it's something I guess we've talked a lot about, and we're now on a bit of a journey to actually do things that are meaningful. So that kind of will take us through to 30 June, and then just looking, I guess, more broadly, 2023 and beyond. So yes, really now to our statement of intent. And look, fundamentally, our statement of intent that you've seen, there's no substantial change in direction of travel to what has been signed off in our 10-year strategy, and ultimately in previous recent statement of intents. Is obviously still a refreshed COVID lens there, but we're very much on track with our 10-year strategy, and still benchmarking ourselves against that. So probably for the first time in a decade, we're actually going to see some aeronautical development around the airline business. So we've sold a number of properties on Titanium Park that are call it airside, so they do bound the current airport boundary, and we've had quite a bit of interest for corporate jet operators to wanting to relocate their jets out of Auckland, or indeed new operators that can't get hangarage in Auckland. So in addition to the land transaction, we're investing in infrastructure for teams. This is quite significant sized taxiway developments under our long-term master plan, and of course, what with the designation, we have to protect the runway and a future potential long-haul runway extension. This is sort of infrastructure that will fold up into that. So in time, we see this development being able to connect the taxiway with the end of the runway to the terminal that we don't currently have. But yeah, first time, certainly since we welcomed L3 to Hamilton Airport a number of years ago, that we've made a significant investment in the non-aeronautical part of the business. There's also work on a new helicopter precinct at the southern end of the airport. So we'll have many of you aware there's called a corporate helicopter hangar facility at the moment. And we're seeing a new maintenance base being built just to the south of that second half of the year. There's still a lot of work going on the runway designation. So look, that does allow us to extend the runway in time up to 3 kilometres. It has about another 5 years to run. But there is obviously a plan we need to have in place to either give effect to that designation or seek an extension. And of course, you are the territorial authority for that. So we're doing some work just behind the scenes, RMA review, refresh technical reports. You know, when this was consented to and the process went through sort of starting 15 years ago, the world looked very different with 747s and A380s that COVID has seen the accelerated retirement of. So it's important to us to actually understand what the aspirations were in 2006 when this journey started, and how much of that's achievable with new aircraft technology, new navigation technology, and just the aircraft that are out there. And it may be that you know, there's a shorter runway can still deliver what was intended to be delivered. You know, connections into Asia and North America. That's highly likely to be achievable with some of the infrastructure we have, and we know there's case studies of that around the world as to what called Airbus A350s and Dreamliners can operate off in the distances they can fly. So doing a lot of work there just to inform ourselves, and there's obviously an ongoing piece of engagement with our shareholders and yourselves as our territorial authority going forward. In the sustainability space, again, a bit like the wellbeing, we've gone from putting some words on a page to actually doing some really positive stuff about it. So there's an international airport accreditation scheme. There's currently 4 levels to it. Very few airports have got to level 1. That's sort of getting your foot on the ladder, and it's really, for us, it's about just understanding our emissions. So a plan to, I guess, understand what they are and measure and report them. We're doing that. That's in line with a lot of emerging regulation and reporting requirements around climate change and things that are coming through. So we got our level 1 certification last year, and we're progressing level 2 as quick as we can. Now, level 2 is not just more technical reports and more analysis. There's actually a time frame in it, because we have to go through a process that shows over time we've reduced our emissions, and understandably COVID and decreased passenger volumes and things has put quite a disruption on that. So we're working as quick as we can, but it's not something that will necessarily get overnight. And the other end of the spectrum, Christchurch is one of the first airports in the world to get level 4. So there is precedent for New Zealand airports doing very well. So I do have a question there from Councillor Pettit.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Hey, just with regard reducing emissions, is part of that the possibility of purchasing carbon credits?
It is something we have looked into. I think once we get a full picture of what our emissions are, and I guess at an airport, the airport company is a relatively small part of, call it the ecosystem of emissions. There's things like fuel burning and that which aircraft do. So for us, I think at the next stage, part of level 2, and as we look at level 3, is actually understanding what our true carbon footprint is. But some of the things we are doing behind the scenes is we're actually looking at solar and energy optimization. So one of it is actually how can we use less electricity, and that's very simple as part of the TRP, thermal upgrade, LED lighting, that sort of technology is going in. But it's also future-proofing ourselves around, we have a lot of surplus land and not all of it can be developed for a business park. There's plenty of land, that you can't build a tall building on, but we can put a solar farm on, and it's very credible. And even yesterday, a presentation internally, so a very credible business case for solar farm development. I think that would be step 1, definitely. And yeah, offsetting carbon credits is something we had definitely talked about, but it's probably before we made a call on that, it's understanding what our true carbon footprint is, and that of our a lot of our key providers as well. So you obviously come to an airport and you talk to check-in staff and baggage handlers and things, and a lot of that's through the airline. So it's a bit more than just saying the airport carbon neutral truly? Well, the airport company might be, but the airport as a whole might not be. So I think we'd like to do some more work before we made a statement like committing to offsetting carbon, things like that. So as also part of the energy optimization is being EV, electric vehicle charging future-proof. Obviously at a supermarket, people go plug their car in, they can get a fast charge for 20 minutes, get their groceries and go home. Airports are a little more challenging. If we have 5 charging ports, the first 5 electric cars that turn up on a Monday morning, plug their cars in, their owners get on a plane and go to Wellington for 3 days or a week of meetings, or the family goes on holiday. So there's obviously there 5 chargers serve 5 cars well, but they're plugged in for a week. So that's something we're still navigating, but it's also as we future-proof ourselves, it's something we're cognizant of. That's it's definitely a growing market. And that leads into other opportunities as well around the services we offer, and can we offer like a valet parking, so the cars are charged when people get home, and then also public transport. So we do have that on-demand bus service now as well. So it's another, I guess, economic from a consumer's point of view, and also from an energy optimization. If you can send one bus with 10 people, it's a lot better than 10 separate cars going out. So some really good stuff in that space happening. And I guess just our future property development. So Central Precinct, which is between the airport terminal and Pacific Aerospace, for those of you familiar with the airport. So the 5th stage is currently under construction. That has with it those airside sections I talked about earlier. So we expect those transactions to settle in about August or September. So, and that is quite a large release of capital at a time where the heavy spend on the terminal is nearing an end. So that keeps the balance sheet nice and tidy, and the cash flow management really good. It does put a spike in our 2023 earnings as well. And after that, I think we'll see a couple of quieter years in terms of trading profit with until Northern Precinct's underway. And the view then is to have within the 2025 financial year, the first land sales there. And I think in terms of Northern Precinct, obviously, Mark's spoken to that briefly. So I'll just pass you back to Mark, just with any concluding comments.
Well, thanks, Scott. I think pretty comprehensive. So I'm going to finish there and allow the council to ask any questions. But I think the key point around FY23 is we expect to have a strong year, as Scott has mentioned, because of the land sales. So the business is protected out into the FY24 year. So fortunately, I think we're going to trade through 3 years of COVID impacted results, which for our company are going to have had a minimal impact. So again, speaks to that whole diversification strategy that has got the business through in very good shape. So we'll leave it at that. Back to you, Councillor.
Thanks, Mark and Scott. That was a great update on your already comprehensive report. So yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, your financials do look very solid, and earnings as well. So congratulations on that. Do I have any further questions? Okay, no, that being the case, thank you very much, gentlemen. And
Andrew?
oh, sorry, Graham.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Mark, hello, Graham Weber. Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you, Graham.
Yeah, I put a suggestion to the council because 11 years ago there was a shareholders call in Waipa through in 1.875, and I saw your balance sheet and where you were heading and thought, gosh, you guys are doing so well, you may consider paying it back to the shareholders who are facing, for what we would say, is reasonably tight times. So I just look forward to a positive outcome when you take it to the board, Mark. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. And look, I'll get Scott to comment in a moment. We are in the process. In fact, Kim will receive a letter back from the airport company later this week or very early next week. So we have had a discussion with the board, and I think, look, it has been well noted. I guess the challenge that we need to consider is that the company will need somewhere in the order of $15 to $20 million to develop stage 1 of Northern Precinct. So I think we're in a position where the current earnings, both and that will be a combination, of course, of cash flow and debt funding for stage 1. Now we would hope to sell sufficient land to help fund that. So I think we are conscious that longer term, that will certainly be our intention, and obviously the intention is to restart dividends full stop as we come out of COVID. Scott has done some early work actually, and Scott, have you got any further comments to add just before we respond formally anyway?
No, look, I think we agree that, and going back through the history of why that money was invested, it was invested obviously to facilitate, as part of its titanium part, and it is maturing, but I think it's that important hump to get through the next couple of years until Northern's up and running and it's self-sustainable. Obviously, the difference, I guess, from where we've been in the property strategy has been typically funding, recycling capital to fund the airport. Hopefully now the airport, and it's come through COVID, and I think that's been a good test that the airport is pretty sustainable in that regard. We got sprung with the seismic issue on the building, and that's going to cost us 15 million, which look at a lot of other airports around the country have had to knock on the friendly shareholders' doors, so we haven't had to do that. So I think like step 1 has been get the airport in order. That's done. There's a lot of confidence around that going forward. And look, once we're over the hump in Northern, the initial capital outlay, then I think it's really around generating a sustainable and recurring income. The challenge, of course, with land sales that we've had this surplus land to date is we've sold the land, we've realised the capital, what next? So now the airport's sustainable, Northern's up and running. That's, as I'm saying, 2025 probably should first sales come through, and I think definitely after that point, it's not lost on us that if we're generating a sustainable and recurring income, there needs to be a pass back to the shareholders, and obviously acknowledge the reason why the capital was invested.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I'm leaving council after 21 years, and I didn't want anybody to forget about it, because even you and Mark haven't been there very long, so that was my strategy of bringing that up.
Graham, I've been here 7 years, so I feel like it's quite a long time. But no, look, it's not lost on the board at all around its obligations to return dividends. So that is very much, and look, I think it's, I would expect, even though with you leaving, I'd expect the shareholder representatives at our AGM, etc., to continue to remind us of those obligations going forward.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Nice to catch up.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for that, both of you. Liz, you have
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Hey, look, I guess we're all pretty proud of our Waipa Airport, and I just wanted to sort of mention that, hey, your ability to diversify has been really impressive, and on my time on council, and I guess it's really shown through with the changes that we constantly see when we're driving by. And good news about the helicopter precinct as well. I think that kind of diversification and growth is exceptional. I'm still interested in the airlines that are servicing the airport. Obviously, we've got Air New Zealand, Origin, and Sunny is still there. But I don't see obviously a great competitive environment. But is that something that well, I look forward to the day that we can see some more competition on that scale. That's all. But I guess it's just a timing thing. And as we grow as a city, as a region, that will hopefully change.
Yeah. Look, perhaps I'll just quick couple of comments, and nice to see you, Liz. But look, the challenge, and look, we saw Jetstar undertake a regional network, and we were part of bidding for that back in just prior to me starting in 2015, 14 and 15. And look, the challenge you have, and that was unsuccessful pre-COVID. So regional competition is very challenging, and you've got Jetstar that's re-entering the national, the main trunk routes in competition with Air New Zealand. But I think what we will see, and COVID, of course, has shifted the dial yet again. And I don't really see, I see regional airlines such as Origin, Sun Air, Sounds Air, Air Chatham's, those sorts of airlines will provide services to certain locations, but I don't foresee a period where there will be, if you like, a major competitor airline on regional routes. There just isn't the population base to make it profitable, and you're tending to operate aircraft that are less seats on board. Therefore, the airfares are more expensive. Therefore, low-cost airlines don't tend to be attracted to regional routes. So it's a challenge. Our role is to try and grow, particularly Origin Air, and to try and make sure that we started that just, Origin had just launched the Hamilton to Hawke's Bay service just prior to this latest, so late last year. So their intention, of course, then you could fly an Origin from here to Palmerston North to Hawke's Bay, on to Wellington or Nelson. So there is a desire, but I don't underestimate the challenge.
Thanks for that, Mark. Mike, you have another question.
Yeah, sorry, just one more. And it's in terms of competition, but in terms of diversification of types of aircraft, with these electric aircraft looking at coming online, they're being prototyped at the moment, but they're small passenger aircraft for that sort of small hops. Is there any discussion or any talk around that coming to Hamilton sometime in the future?
Yeah, look, we've been briefed by Air New Zealand. In fact, we had a briefing not so long ago, and look, Scott is a pilot as well, so he'll jump in. But look, one of the challenges, as you say, for electric is that it's 19 seats or less at the moment, and it's less than a couple of hundred nautical miles. So flying from Hamilton to even Wellington isn't that achievable with electric as the technology currently stands. But look, Sounds Air there'll be some trialling over the next few years. In New Zealand's view is that there will probably be regional electric aircraft later this decade, maybe around 2030 or maybe slightly before. And the other key aspect is whether or not it's electric and or hydrogen is the other fuel that is being closely considered globally. There's a lot more complexity around hydrogen being able to compress it sufficiently to carry enough on board. But work is going on in that space. Both solutions require massive airport infrastructure to accommodate those alternative fuels. Not insurmountable, but reasonably expensive. and therefore that also has to come into the mix. So look, and then long haul, there's still no alternative long haul. Some biofuel development, they think, but fundamentally, no one's seeing any change to long haul out till 2050 almost. So it's an emerging technology, something that I don't think we'll see out of the Waikato before the 2030s.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that. Okay. All right. Thanks, gentlemen. Yeah, that's a very comprehensive rundown on where you're at and where you're going. Which and congratulations on well, doing a great job in difficult circumstances. So yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks very much. All the best.
Cheers. Okay, I see Andrew from LGFA there. Hi, Andrew. Welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Yeah. So, do you wish to make a presentation? We've read your report, of course, but
Yep, I'll just share my screen, so I'll be very quick. Oops. Firstly, if I can just touch on the operating profit for the 6 months to 31st of December. So the profit was $5.9 million. So you can see that's consistent with previous years and also the outlook going forward. So while profits are important to LGFA in respect that they will build the equity base going forward, and that's good for you as a shareholder and guarantor in LGFA, they're probably not the primary focus of LGFA. The biggest challenge, I think, when I look back over the last 2 years is just the significant amount of volatility in global financial markets. So going back a couple of years, we saw risk aversion as a result of COVID. We've seen the start of central bank tightenings and a lot of global inflationary pressures. And in the last sort of 6 weeks, we've seen the geopolitical risk coming out of the war in Ukraine. And just, to illustrate just how, the risk aversion that investors have now, for example, if China started providing some sort of support to Russia and New Zealand companies couldn't trade with China anymore, the risk for the change in the financial outlook for a company like Fonterra would just change so quickly. So you can see that's what investors are thinking about. As a consequence, LGFA has put a lot of emphasis on building a strong amount of liquidity. So we used to have around $500 million of liquid assets to support sort of future lending for councils. We're now holding around sort of $2.5 billion of financial assets. So that will enable us to lend to councils for a significant period of time, even if we went through a period where we couldn't issue any more bonds into financial markets ourselves. So that comes at a financial cost. So, we have to issue debt and invest that money in high quality assets. So we don't make any money out of doing that. But that, just to sort of illustrate that is really the key consideration of LGFA directors, is just ensuring we're able to meet the financial requirements of councils and in the most cost-effective manner that we can. In terms of our objectives, one of the ticks we've got that I'd just like to highlight is the annual survey we do with councils, and we target an 85% satisfaction score. We now have 74 member councils with another 3 in the process of joining, so that will take us to 77. So the only non-council member will be Chatham Islands. So we have had extremely strong support from the council sector. And the satisfaction rate, this is an anonymous survey for the 12 months to June 21 was just over 99%. So hopefully that provides some sort of illustration that our member councils are happy with that we're meeting their financial requirements. The two objectives that we didn't meet is the first one was achieving an 80% market share. The issue we've got there is Auckland make up over 50% of total council debt in New Zealand. And if LGFA met all of Auckland Council's borrowing, we wouldn't have a diversified lending portfolio. So S&P wouldn't give us a AAA rating if we had something like 50 to 60% of our debt lent to Auckland Council. So that means Auckland have to do around 2/3 of their borrowing in their own name. And so that's where that other sort of 20% is going. It's simply Auckland borrowing in their own name. So that's something we really don't have a lot of control over. And the other objective we didn't meet is getting out to meet all of our member councils in the last 12 months. We are doing Zoom meetings and telephone calls. And as soon as the COVID situation improves, hopefully in the next few months, we'll be back on the road doing face-to-face meetings. In terms of our SOI, we've reformatted the way we set out our performance targets. So we used to say we have primary objectives and then we had some secondary objectives. Now we've changed it so they've been broken down into 5 different categories of performance targets. So you'll see when you look at the business targets and the optimizing finance targets, they're largely the same. They've just been put into the different categories. Where it has changed is on this page is in the environment and social responsibility area, that we've added a number of new targets in there. And that is really just to reflect that there's a change both in the reporting standards that ourselves and councils are going to have to meet, and also some performance targets in the areas of sustainability and climate change that councils probably are going to need to meet. Some councils will have greater challenges than others. And if you look at the last one, industry leadership and engagement, this is something that's been a change in our role probably in the last sort of few years. There's so much change going on in the sector in respect of 3 waters, RMA reform, the future of local government, climate change. So whereas we used to just see ourselves as a financier of councils, we now sort of recognise that we need to take a proactive role in helping councils through some of the other reforms that are and changes that are going on in the sector. So I will stop there and happy to take any questions.
Excuse me. Thanks for that, Andrew. Yeah, look, from my perspective, LGFA is doing a great job for local government and Waipa in particular. Probably more in the future than in the past. But Claire, you have a question.
Yeah, thanks. And it was great to have your report. Yeah, I really enjoy reading it. I've got a particular interest in that GSS lending, the green, social and sustainable lending. And I was wondering if you could give us an insight as to how much interest you're getting from councils in participating in that, and if you could give us an idea of what you can see the impacts or the benefits are.
Yes, so it is a reasonably new sort of initiative for us. So in part it reflects that investors are demanding more information about where the proceeds of debt are going to. It also reflects that, councils and ourselves also have some responsibility, I suppose, in respect of things like sustainability and climate change. So it's recognising that growing need to sort of be in that sort of space and to help councils. So we've done 2 green loans in the last 6 months. So I've just got them up on screen. So one was to Greater Wellington Regional Council and one was to Wellington Cities. So Greater Wellington's is a sort of like to do with a transformation of that sort of Hutt River sort of precinct to do with flood protection, things like that. And the Greater Wellington's is a 5-star sort of green building, the convention sort of centre. So we're not forcing this on councils, but we sort of want to, where they have green or sustainable projects, or they have climate-linked targets, we can link a loan to a target that you have, maybe reducing sort of emissions, that we will give you a discount of 5 basis points on that loan. So there's nothing in it for us, but we just want to incentivise councils when they're ready to participate in this space. So we're happy to work with you and do most of the work in terms of trying to identify sort of projects. One of the tricky issues is the Three Waters reform. So a lot of those water assets would have been perfect in terms of, green and sustainable lending, but there's not much point going into that space while, some sort of transition away from councils is likely. But we'll see where that goes in the next sort of year or two.
Have you had any discussions with central government on them providing other incentives, for councils or other large entities that would qualify for you, like CCOs, doing these projects? Like overseas, they get tax breaks and other kind of, concessions. Yeah, so it's not just LGFA that's giving that discount on the interest, but it's a broader package.
Yeah. So what we have done is appoint a 4-person sustainability committee. So they're all external people, and they are a lot of people that have roles in the advisory, or they're related directly to doing a lot of sort of green lending. So they're providing us expert advice in terms of what is best practice going on in New Zealand and sort of globally. We're more than happy to be an advocate for the sector and to raise some of the things that you're talking about. We do have good contacts with DIA and Treasury. However, I suspect the reality at the moment is they just have so much on their plate that it's just not going to be a priority. It's unfortunate, but it will. It will come into play, and this Productivity Commission sort of touched on it in their sort of report, that there's going to have to be more cooperation between central and local government in addressing this issue. I
was just going to say, it'd be great if I didn't pick up that advisory group that you've got on the green lending in your report. I mean, I did skim it though, but if it's not in there, it'd be really good to have that included there. And I was also interested in the ratepayer financing scheme that is mentioned. That's something to help people that are struggling to pay their rates. Yeah, if you could explain that a little bit more.
Yes, it's something that been driven by a number of larger councils. So Auckland, Tauranga, Hamilton have been sort of part of that, Wellington, I think, and Cameron sort of partners, and we've sort of played a role in that sort of too. So we're happy to help sort of facilitate that in terms of maybe the financing that might sit behind that, and maybe the system side of things as well. But it will be a scheme whereby, you do get those ratepayers, and affordability is, again, it is a challenge, and it will probably get worse, or more of a challenge. So providing people that are sort of asset rich in terms of their own house, the ability to defer rates. So LGFA or another financer would sort of mean that the councils get their money up front, and investors, that might be LGFA, sort of just provide their finance until that money is able to be repaid when the house is eventually sort of sold. So I know you can take out reverse annuity mortgages, but this will simply be a lot cheaper way. So we will do it at, our cost of funds. Whereas if you go to Heartland and do it, you probably paying, 6, 7, 8%, whereas we can probably do it at 1 or 2%. So.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. That's really interesting. Appreciate that.
But it's a sector-led initiative as well, so it's not just LGFA. We're just doing, I guess, the financing part of that.
Well, yeah, but that's a really important part of it. Yeah, and probably makes it a lot more viable. Yeah, but thank you very much.
Yeah, it is a scheme that they do have in parts of Canada, and it is successful over there. So it definitely sort of works. So clearly, it won't be for every ratepayer, but there is that sort of ones that it will provide them with some sort of choice, which is a good thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, sounds a great scheme. Ken. Oh, you're on mute, Ken.
Apologies. My apologies for that. Hey, Andrew, I was just interested in that last comment on that ratepayer financing thing, because would there have to be some limits around that in terms of the size of that book, or I'm just concerned about potential credit rating implications if the size of that loan book grew too large.
There will be, with any like reverse annuity sort of lending, there are limits as to how much someone will lend, and it does, when you look at the modelling, it depends on demographics, so depends on your age versus your life expectancy, the value of your house, existing lending on that sort of house. I'd suspect the amount of rates that will be deferred, it would take a long time for it to accumulate where you got in excess of the value of the property. But yes, that's where sort of Cameron Partners and things sort of come in. So they will set rules around it to ensure that any lender is sort of protected. So if you had a 90% loan on your house, it's unlikely you'd then be able to do any rates deferment through this scheme.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Okay, do I have any further questions for Andrew?
So we're more than happy to come and talk to you later when time permits, or the council executive, on any of these sort of issues and provide you more details. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think there's every likelihood we'll take you up on that offer, Andrew, sometime in the future. Yeah, cheers. So look, thanks very much for that. And I guess no further questions. We'll move on to Kelvin and CoLab. Oh, great. Now, where's
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Really appreciate the opportunity to come and have a chat to you this afternoon. Look, I'm going to take the documents as read and keep my comments very brief, really just to highlight a few key things, I guess, with the statement of intent in particular. Look, CoLab's future is really exciting, no doubt about that, but in the short term we continue to face some challenges. And I guess, Peter and I reflect on and sympathise with our shareholding councils who are facing a bit of a perfect storm, if you like, with a pandemic and central government reform coming at you left, right and centre, resource constraints, and obviously continued growth within the region. It doesn't make life easy for you, and by any stretch, and as I say, we sympathise with that. I guess the implication for us is we are increasingly seeing less capacity for council staff to help support some of the projects that we are looking to deliver on, and so our projects are taking longer than we would ideally like them to. And it's a bit of a balancing act for us, and we continue to walk that line between, I think we've talked about going as hard and fast as we possibly can in the past, but at the same time, obviously being cognizant of the bandwidth that councils have to help support us. And while we've got, as a result of the transformation of the company, a small called core team, we are still small, and we are continuing to rely on council resource to help facilitate the development of opportunities in particular. So yeah, look, that is noted in the document is certainly our single key challenge, I guess. In that regard, I would like to, and I won't name people, but just acknowledge that we do receive a huge amount of support from Waipa staff. Notwithstanding capacity constraints, I know that they do their absolute damnedest to help us out wherever possible, and we are very grateful to them for that support. So notwithstanding that, I guess pretty fundamental challenge, we do have cause for some excitement. So we are progressing to market in the next few weeks with our first initiative in the Customer Digital Enablement Program, which is around sustainability and rubbish and recycling. It's referred to as SR4. So we're pretty excited about that. We also are shortly to issue proposals to councils to participate in collab learning, which is an initiative that stemmed out of the People and Capability Managers Working Party, so Steph Shaw and in your case, and obviously supported by learning and development specialists within the council. So as I say, we're going to release proposals on that shortly and hope to have that stood up probably in the middle of the year. I suspect there's a timing on that, as will be hopefully a procurement support service. So I know that Waipa has internal resource, but has indicated that it would be great to have a bit of overflow access, if you like, to additional resource as and when required. And certainly there's some smaller councils where their procurement resource is a bit part of a broader role, and they've tasked us with looking at how we might provide a centralised support service. So those are some examples of some pretty cool stuff that I think we have got coming up in the coming 12 months, and will certainly add value to our shareholding councils. We're certainly beyond those priority projects. We obviously want to continue to deliver on our value through our existing suite of services, so water services, sampling and analysis and the like, and RATA. We also want to work out how we can continue to communicate with you guys better. And we will shortly, on the back of the draft SOI, be releasing an updated document. You may recall or may have seen it. In fact, I think you have seen it from my discussion with Ken, a summary of our relationship with your council and the value that we believe we've provided to the council and the investment you have made. And we'll be looking to update that, as I say, on the back of this draft SOI in the next few weeks. And we want to get better at communicating with you and reporting that value. So we've got a bit of an internal project going on to look at that over the next few months. So look, I'm going to leave it there. I'm very happy to take questions. Thank you once again for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thanks for that, Kelvin. And I know we get great value out of a number of the projects that CoLab has under their wing. Do I have questions? Claire?
Yeah. Thanks, Kelvin. It's great to get your report, and I do think that we get fantastic value from this collaboration. In fact, I really like the rebrand as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. With the impact or measuring the benefits, if you're implementing a permanent change that to a process that's going to save staff time and or do it in a more efficient way, that benefit can actually be applied every year after it's implemented, not just the first year. That would mean you could, so that over time, you are reporting on those continuing benefits too, which yes. I think would include. Yeah, I think it's a lost opportunity for you not to, and it would incentivize more councils to be making more use of the services. I was quite interested in the Changing Landscapes project, and in particular, I'm not on the right page, sorry. There's a particular name for it, isn't it?
Shifting Landscapes?
Yeah,
Community needs analysis, or
the community needs analysis. That's right. Do you know if YPA's participating in that?
Yes, you are. I believe so.
All right. Oh,
that's right, isn't it, Ken?
So I don't think we've had any reporting on it. That's all. Yeah, it sounded quite interesting. Yeah.
Yes, through the chair, yes, I believe we are very much.
It's Haven, isn't it, that's involved from?
Yes, that is correct. Haven and strategy is the officer level contact. Yeah.
So the final report on that will be released to the chief executive and Ken and the subject matter expert by us on Thursday this week. We'll leave it up to them to distribute as they see fit.
Oh yeah, no, thanks. That'd be great. I'm not sure how well the feedback survey is reported to us councillors as well, because that is an important measure of your performance, I guess. And I think there was a time when there was a difficulty getting the survey completed, but I don't know whether or not you've been able to move through that. And if you
you're right, councillor. So a couple of years ago, we didn't actually decide to do one simply because we were going through the transformation and we were actually changing all our measures fundamentally. So we did do one, a quite detailed one last year, and it escapes me actually how that was presented back to the individual councils, to be honest. So I would need to check that, but certainly very happy to. It's a good example of how we can communicate with you better, right? We should absolutely be feeding that information back, and am very happy. I mean, I've got a philosophy of complete transparency with our shareholding councils, so very happy to share that.
Thanks very much. And I do sort of acknowledge what you're saying about the capacity issues with staff. It is unfortunate that that's the model that you work under, but it's because you're obviously going to not progress or achieve as much as what you'd like to at the moment. And
look, we're trying to mitigate that risk. So we do have now a couple of analysts on board to help resource projects, but we will never get away from having a degree of reliance on council staff, because we're not the subject matter experts in these areas that we're looking to develop, right? So we can drive the process and facilitate good project management and what have you, but fundamentally we're always going to be asking for council input into these things, so to get the right answer for you.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire and Kelvin. Ken.
Yes, so through you, Chair, I just wanted to help out with Councillor St Pierre's question there on the feedback survey. So Calvin, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I believe that's a stated performance measure in your SOI, and therefore would actually be reported in the annual report. Councillor, we do bring the annual reports of these CCOs through to this committee. So so it would be a matter of watching the space. You should see the results of this year's feedback survey and the annual report, I believe, Calvin.
Actually, you're right. Thank you, Ken. Yes, you're right. There was some high level commentary on last year's survey. So we do it about April. So we will be releasing the survey in the next 2-3 weeks to councils. And the idea is that gets collated and goes through to the board in June in time for it to be incorporated into our annual report. So yes, the annual report for last year, which I think got released just prior to Christmas, it was quite late because we haven't been audited yet. Was audited at NZ Resource Issues. Did have some commentary on feedback on the survey from last year. Thank you, Ken.
Right. Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that. So, do anyone have any further questions for Kelvin? No, if not, thanks very much for that, Kelvin. And yeah, hoping that the next few months are a little less challenging and even more productive. But thanks very much for your efforts.
You're very welcome and all the best. As I say, I certainly sympathise with you guys.
Yes, and we with you as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, so our last one is, I see Charlie Howe is there from Civic. So Charlie, welcome.
Kia ora, Councillor. Kia ora whānau, he mihi nui, he mihi mehana, kia ora koutou katoa, ko Ngāti Mani a poto te iwi, ko Ngāti te hine te hapu, ko Hikarangi te moanga, ko Pipiu te marae, I whāna mai hau I Tamara Nui, ko Charlie Howe tuku ingoa, kia ora, huhu mai tātou. Up many slides, we're right in the transformation of a few things that we're looking at changing for the company going forward. But before I continue, I just want to acknowledge Ian Brown, who was the previous CEO for Civic. I just want to tai toko all the good work that he's done for our company and particularly for local government staff, how he's been one of the biggest instigators of this firm in regards to getting people in that right habit of saving for their retirement. And I can actually say that Waipa is a very good supporter of our two schemes, which are the Super Easy Employer Scheme as well as the Super Easy KiwiSaver Scheme. So I just wanted to make sure that Ian was recognised for that, because Ian's last day is coming up on Thursday. He's finishing up with Civic, although like good people, I've asked Ian to come back for a couple of days after he's had a sabbatical of a couple of months to do a bit of work for me. Look, my name's Charlie Howe, and I thought it's really important that you probably understand my background. I'm really new to the role, but just to give you some comfort, I spent 40 years in banking. I stayed with the one bank. I was a Heritage National banker. I retired as the general manager for the ANZ, looking after the business and retail portfolio. I spent basically my 40 years, like a lot of the councils and council workers, sort of taking my whānau all around the country and running branches and getting to know what community is all about. Look, I loved every minute of that role, but then I wanted to go and help our people. So I was asked to do a role for the Ministry of Social Development as the Director for Māori and Pacifica. I put together the Māori strategy, or helped put together the Māori strategy. And again, just the unique opportunity for working for central government, working with some lovely people who I admire so much in regards to working in that social environment. It's challenging at the best of times. And I also was lucky enough to head up the post-iwi settlement team. So I got involved with iwi quite substantially from that perspective. So I thought after 40 years I'd be pretty good at engagement, but I learned about engagement just working in that 3 years with iwi. Significant learnings for me. And I took the opportunity of actually going out for a coffee with a certain Mr. Brown, and he managed to talk me into becoming the new CEO of Civic Financial Services. So that's sort of my background and why I'm here. But I thought rather than talk about the statement of intent, which I think is quite boring actually, and we're going to sort of gear it up to actually mean a lot more than just words and numbers. I'm really keen to come back to you, if I'm allowed to, after this presentation in 12 months' time, and show you a different sort of statement of intent I'd like to change the company towards. There's not enough about people in here. There's not enough about well-being in the statement of intent, which I think is really important for local government to understand, is that you've got to look after your staff. And if there's one thing I know about money, is that the sooner people start saving, the better off they're going to be. It doesn't matter who they are, what scheme. I'm not worried about if they come to Super Easy. All I'm worried about is making sure the message goes out to all local staff, and under our scheme, our restricted scheme, or whānau as well, that never is the time to start saving as today. And I think that's a message that a lot of New Zealanders have forgotten about. So that's sort of the influence I want to bring to Civic Financial Services. And I'm really pleased to actually share our story with you today, because we're right in the middle of transformation. We're changing our board as well. We've got a lot of new board members coming on board who are basically saying to me, we need to change, we need to get our whole ship into a different world. Automation needs to be considered, technology needs to be considered, which I get, but it's still going to take time to turn that knob on to where we'd like to go to. So 3 things that I've asked for support in from the board of directors. 3 things is we need to position Civic as a trusted, successful, and future-focused steward of members' KiwiSavers. That's a priority for us. The second focus that I've asked the board to consider is that we need to promote the organisation in a planned, managed, targeted, and sustained manner to reinforce desired positioning of what we want to do as a company. And the third one is protecting and managing the Civic brand and positioning its sustainability, not only in our presence with local government, but also from a profitability perspective, to be able to sustain what they've done in the past, as well as what we're looking at going forward. My aspirations are that I call it te pai tata, and that's all about new horizons, which embodies the journey of transformation. That's all about looking at what's in front of us now, appreciated the whakapapa that's been done before us, but what's looking in front of us as far as a new horizon is concerned. Now, you guys are probably thinking, what does this all really mean for Waipa? Well, as a shareholder, all I wanted to give you some confidence in is that we're taking the company to the next level. Whilst we've been producing some really good profit in the past, and we'll continue to do so, and we've also made this very clear statement about reducing our members' fees, which we're going to continue to do, as at the 1st of April this year, the fees will come down again from 0.40 to 0.37%. I know that's been a big priority of the company, but also you've got to make sure that the returns are reasonable as well. So the focus has been on keeping fees really low, but also my focus is on probably what I call a better view of having really good returns as well as low fees. Andrew from LGFA spoke about the tough times. Well, you can certainly consider what our members are going through today with what's been going on in the market. Yes, it's been challenging, but my messages to our members have been staying there. This is a long-term investment. Data has proven over time that we've had these situations before, i.e. only 2 years ago when COVID first hit. A lot of our members decided that they'll shift their funds from high growth to conservative, or even to the extreme where they took their money out and invested it with a bank. And I think it was pretty obviously after a couple of months down the line, the market regenerated and went back to normal. And a lot of people lost a lot of money. And I think if you have a look back in time, if you have a look at GFC and what SARS did, it was pretty obvious the market goes up and down, and this is a long-term investment. So that's sort of been the messaging to our members. I'm really excited to actually hold the role. I'm looking forward. I've spoken to Gary. I'm looking forward to getting in front of kanohi to some of the staff in Waipa, just to tell our story and to support them. But we are looking at different ways of communicating. We're looking at producing presentations that could be launched into your portals and councils, so staff can determine when they want to look at that and listen to that. With that, I'm really keen on producing presentations that don't have me talking, but have our members telling their story about why they are in these certain schemes. So we're right at the cusp of producing that stuff. So looking forward to that coming out. Look, I've done enough talking, and I just wanted to say thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to working really closely with the local government staff in Waipa. Kia ora. Any questions?
Kia ora, thanks, Charlie. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you in a year, and what
Hope so. Hope so.
And look, when people reach the age of most of us around this table, you realise how important saving and starting early is. So you know that's a great message, Mike.
Yeah, kia ora, Charlie. Ko Mike Takawengoa. Yeah, hey, I really like your message, because when markets crash and people have got their super, as you've alluded to, a lot of people panic, and they panic at exactly the wrong time. When things are going down is the last time you want to be pulling your money out. But for most people, it's a knee-jerk reaction, and unfortunately, as you've alluded to, a lot of people lose money because their money's out when the market goes back up, and then they're all sort of annoyed that they've lost all this money. So yeah, I think it's a really good message that you really need to reinforce in many different ways, so people really understand the risk of pulling the money out, and it is a long-term investment. You're not looking at something over the here and now or over a crisis, for instance. So yeah, I talk what you're talking about.
Yeah, Michael, and the good thing about it is, Michael, I also have asked our investment managers to say the same story, and they have done, supporting what I've just said. But it is really important that, look, I'm getting hammered, and I'll be honest with you. If I was a member, I'd certainly be a concern. If I was 64, I'm coming up to retirement in 12 months' time, and I've had this money and it's disappeared in the last 2 or 3 months. But actually having someone that's probably been through that and can support them, and it's a phone call for me. It's not they have to send an email message and get one back. I'll jump on the phone and speak to those members, because I think it's important I'm really keen on I suppose it's one of those best kept secrets. You know, our company is about people, and I think we've got to remember that. And if someone can talk to someone, it's a different story, is what I'm saying, and they feel a lot more comfortable, Michael.
Yeah, no doubt. Great. Okay, thanks, Charlie. If there's no more questions, I guess, well, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I say, look forward to seeing you in 12 months' time.
Look forward to it.
Or maybe earlier.
Maybe earlier. Thanks, Councillor.
Cheers. Okay, so now what we need to do now is go to our letters in response to the statements of intent. So I think we should, Yolanda, in your hands here, but consider them one by one.
Yes. Perfect. So the first letter is Appendix 4, and that's to the Waikato Regional Airport Limited.
And that's on page 149.
49 of the agenda, yes, Chair.
Yeah, great. Does anyone have any comments or additions or subtractions they'd like to make to that? Okay, that's great. There being none, we'll move to the letter to CoLab, which is on page 151. And I'll ask the same questions. Everybody's happy, terrific. So then we've got LGFA on page 153. Everyone's good with that, that's great. And the final one is to Civic Finance on page 155. And yeah, that's, well, okay, so everyone's happy with that. So that being the case, let's go to the recommendation, which is quite a substantial one on pages 33 and 34. And I guess we'll just remove the subject to any changes or additional comments in C E, and G and H. Okay, so everyone's on board with all that. So subject to those that we part of the phrase being removed in those items, do I have a mover, please? Lou, thank you. And Jim, seconder. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. That is carried. Great. Thanks, Yolanda. That's was a real bit of a, quite a substantial body of work there for you, and we really appreciate the effort you've put into those summaries and the letters going forward.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee.
Great. Okay, so we'll now move to item 8, and I think, Ken, you're going to introduce us.
So quickly, Chair, I'll just have to remove myself now.
Right. Yeah, no, thanks, Philip. Good as gold.
Yes, so through the chair, I'm happy to to lead off on this report. Hey, I do notice we do have a team from Resthaven with us. So so John and David and co. I know you had your camera on before. Might pay to turn that on again. Yep. Well, welcome. So look, Chair, I'll just lead through this this item, which is it is, to be fair, a bit of a difficult item, because as I've acknowledged in the covering report, look, Resthaven is certainly a community-based not-for-profit who has done over many years outstanding work in the Cambridge community. That is absolutely acknowledged. But look, what they have come to us with today, and in fact not today, obviously over a period of time, they have indicated, look, they would love some council financial support towards a very significant development that they are doing in their complex in Cambridge, and that is a very legitimate request. But I guess as I signal in this report, well, both myself and Tony signal in this report, look, this is probably unfortunate timing in terms of the request. Because any assistance that council would provide here would be very much a grant fund, grant funding. So this would be operational expenditure. It would come straight out of ratepayer dollars. And look, just at this moment, you will, councillors, you'll be aware how challenging our annual plan was in terms of pulling that together, in terms of sticking within our rates limit. If we were to go ahead with a request, no matter what the magnitude, this would really have some impact in that regard. Just noting that the development that Resthaven is doing is of course going to is going to bring in some DCs. Those development contributions are already pretty significantly discounted, as Tony has pointed out in the report. So so look, we're acknowledging here that this development is far less a drain on our infrastructure than some other developments, and so we compensate accordingly in line with the DC policy. But look, we don't believe that that we can give any further relief in the DC's area, and certainly it can't be relief out of the development community, because otherwise other parts of the development community are going to have to pick up that tab. So like I say, that returns back to a ratepayer funding situation, whether that be relief of DCs or whether that be by means of another grant. So yeah, so look, yeah, very clear recommendation from the officers, and look, I have had numerous discussions with Resthaven over the last little while. This is not a surprise to them. I was very transparent that that the officer recommendation would be to decline. But look, I've also been very conscious that that Resthaven do deserve a good hearing, and for that reason they are in the room today and certainly able to put their case. I guess the only other thing I would just say is although you have got a very clear officer recommendation that we decline this request, I guess the only other thing that I would just say is if it is your prerogative, elected members, to look to fulfil this request in some way. I would just say to you that if you are of a mind to do that, I would just point you to to the annual plan process in that regard. I certainly don't believe that this is a decision that should be made in isolation. Like I say, we are under pressure to keep rates within the limit. So if you if there is some attraction to potentially favourably considering this, like today is the perfect lead-in conversation. But I would suggest that you don't make a final decision in that regard, in regard to a favourable regard today. But this perhaps gets considered as part of the annual plan considerations. But even in spite of me saying that, as you can see, this is a decline on the part of officers. Just acknowledging that Tony is in the meeting today. Tony obviously has got that DC expertise. So feel free if there's any questions in that regard to ask Tony as well. But Chair, look, as I said before, we have invited Resthaven to put their case. So I suggest that probably now is the time to do that.
Thanks for that, Ken. But just before we give you guys the floor, I've got some questions from councillors I think we possibly need to deal with first. But first of all, Jim. Oh, you're on mute, Jim.
Didn't think I'd get through a day without doing that. Yeah. Just a question, Ken, in considering possible finance options, and it's only just sort of occurred to me thinking it through, is this a possibility for funding from our pensioner reserve housing fund? Because it seems to me the quantum that we're talking about for effectively one unit as a pensioner unit, we can't build them for this price. So it seems to me if it's a dedicated facility, one pensioner unit or flat, then it's effectively, it could be legitimately covered by our pensioner reserve account rather than coming from rates or further contributions out of our development fees.
So look through the chair. Look, Your Worship, that is a very good suggestion. Those pensioner housing reserve funds are very much ring-fenced funds. So our policy very much says that that there be no ratepayer funding element in that. So I guess the only thing to be mindful there is that essentially any funds in those reserves have come from unspent rental monies contributed by the pensioners. But yes, so those are ring-fenced monies, and I guess if this committee had a mind to favourably consider this request, potentially that is a source of funding with the appropriate resolution to do that.
It seems to me that it's probably a pretty good investment if that's the total capital costs and we've got ongoing operating costs covered by Resthaven. It seems to me that it's probably a good deal and it would fit that reserve. But look, I haven't talked to anyone about it. It's just thinking about how we could get around this issue. So if it's an option, it's worth considering, I think.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Jim. Liz, and then Mike.
Thanks, Andrew. Hey, look, I was just going to say that I kind of feel like this organisation, Resthaven, needs to be treated somewhat differently to any other sort of non-profit groups. And the reason why, and I think many councillors won't be aware, but when Resthaven was first founded in 1960-something, it was Cambridge Borough Council at the time that helped in its, to actually create it, as well as the local Rotary groups, Lions groups, and things like that. So we're really integral. Obviously this is pre, Waipa days, but we are a part of this organisation, and so I just kind of feel a little uncomfortable talking about this group as a separate group, whereas it really was founded, by councillors at the time, as well as the other community groups. So I really support Jim's idea around, maybe looking at other options. I think that actually sounds really sensible to me, and we'd really like to explore that further.
Thanks, Liz. Mike.
Yeah, through the chair. Look, yeah. So just to reiterate what's been said there, I guess the other thing is we have to realise this is not for profit, and most rest havens, of course, most rest homes are for profit. So this is unique in itself in our town, and we're very lucky to have it. The other thing is I think Jim's idea is actually a superb idea. But just to throw another one in the mix, because I would really like to see us get across the line somehow, is we went to ratepayers with a 4.4% increase. We've settled out so far going into the annual plan consultation with 4.3, which does leave a 0.1%, potential buffer in there, just as throwing something else on the table. This if it was borrowed money, then that 0.1%, you'd only soak up a fraction of it, is what I'm thinking. Just to throw that on the table, maybe Ken give some feedback on that, please.
So look, so I mean, potentially that's an issue, but therein lies my warning, I suppose, that that we have just embarked on a consultation process in regard to our annual plan. So look, I would definitely strongly advise against a decision in isolation here. That that if we were looking to go down that track, and in fact even the use of the pensioner housing reserve. Look, we're working through a process over the next couple of months. So let's bring it into consideration as part of that process rather than an isolated decision.
And Ken, just to so every 0.1% of rate increase, just approximately how much does that involve? Is it around 60,000 or what?
So look, it's in the through the chair, it's in the order of $60,000 to $70,000. Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Okay, so let's leave that there for the minute. So Resthaven, there you are. It's an opportunity for you to give us a bit of a presentation. How would you, if you'd like to do that, the floor is yours. So yeah.
Thank you. I'm Kevin Monks, the chair of the Resthaven Trust Board. With me, I've got David Hall, the CEO of Resthaven, and John Broadley. We thanks for you allowing us to be part of the process that you're going through right now, and we absolutely value our relationship with Waipa District Council. This is our 50th year in operation here on this site, and it has been a unique relationship between the service groups and council that we are in operation and continuing to be successful. The site and the development was based on the generosity of those service groups and council, along with those service groups, actually helped form and appoint the governance board, which I chair, the Resthaven Trust Board. That group of 8 individuals all give their time freely. We have an extremely high level of governance running this organisation. We value the community that we serve. We are an integral part of that community. We value the aged population of Cambridge, which has burgeoned. I'll draw attention to the fact that we are not for profit, but we're not for loss either. So we run a very fine line. This business is first and foremost community-based and looking after the older and aging population of Cambridge. With that, I think I should just leave it, apart from the fact that I just want to really emphasise that community spirit that we value between Waipa and the service communities, groups and Resthaven. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll hand over to John Broadley.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chair, Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors. Hopefully you are now seeing a presentation on your screens. Really just a few slides just to walk through the intentions and proposal. So our collective challenge. The first point, no surprise to you, you're managing this on a day-to-day basis. The increasing growth within the Waipa area, above average over the rest of New Zealand, and of course, the average age increasing as well. Nationally, of course, our older population makes up about 15.3% in the Census 2018 statistics. In Cambridge, this is 19.4%, and it's rising to about just under 1.4 or 1 to 4 by about 2028, so about 23.7%. Currently, there are about 931 dwellings in Cambridge for our elderly, and about 33% of those live in these dwellings. Most of them are in the commercial setting, a few with the council and Resthaven in the not-for-profit. So the balance of that group, about 2,500 live in the wider community. As we know from the studies that you did in 2018, about 55% earn less than $25,000 a year. So they're living basically on their superannuation. By 2028, this will increase to about 1,600 people living out in the community. However, challenge we've got, only 151 dwellings are targeted for the low socioeconomic, those people living on 25k or less. That's the pensioner flats, Vale Court that you've developed, and the 75 or so villas and care beds here at Resthaven. And so that's the challenge that we've got in the future. And it really supports the 51% increase in single occupancy dwellings that the 2018 accommodation study concluded that we need in the next 15 years to cope with the growth. So basically the new Resthaven development that has been spoken about will help address this shortfall. We're building 77 new apartments, and this will supplement the existing 83 villas, 4 apartments that exist at the moment, and 112 care beds. So a sizable not-for-profit operation. So what we're proposing is that during stage 1 of the development, which is going to occur in the next 3 years, is that we convert 3 offices and 5 office shells into 5 studio units and 3 apartments just up on the top floor here. As part of the sub-project of the whole project, we're looking at offering 5 studio units at further below market rentals for Cambridge elderly, so they can survive in them on their national superannuation income. More rental options will be available for stages 2 and 3, but the majority of these apartments will be from occupational right agreements, and these will help fund the rental options. What we're also looking at doing is the philosophy's changed, and that more care is delivered into these apartments and studios, so that our residents, it becomes their home, and therefore more and more support is delivered to them as they become less and less mobile or infirm, more infirm. So what we're looking at doing is converting current structure of 5 studios and 3 studio apartments at about $900,000 plus GST. And of course, we're asking you to see if you could help cost or fit out one of those studio units for $81,000 plus GST. Here's the current photograph showing the current system, and we're looking at fitting out one of these studios here with its own bed, toilet facilities, etc. So why assist us? Well, it's been mentioned, I don't need to harp on about the not-for-profit arrangement or the 50 years basically that the fundraising started in 66 and the first resident arrived in about 72. So 50 years of support to the community. You'll be aware that Resthaven Trust Board recently purchased Rayburn and renamed it Resthaven on Burns. And that was to provide further affordable care. So another 54 Cambridge elderly could live in that with good care, but at affordable rates. Resthaven Trust Board also purchased to and fro transport service and have been providing affordable companion transport services for elderly living in the wider community, taking people into Hamilton and around Waikato, and particularly around Cambridge. So what we're proposing, of course, is to increase the potential for our elderly, and as has been mentioned by His Worship the Mayor, it seems a fairly good return on your investment. 5 additional flats or studios for the elderly, rentals at a cost of about $81,000 each. Of course, that $81,000 is a realistic request. I mean, you might be so generous as to fund all 5 and give us $400,000, and that would be even more appreciated. But I think we've been very realistic in terms of, we understand your predicament in terms of rate rises, and we're trying to be realistic in our expectations and requests. So what we're asking really is the funding of the fit out. We're calling it the Waipa Studio at the cost of $81,000 plus GST, and that it will enable the Resthaven Trust Board to redirect funds to other community support for the elderly. Questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, thanks for that, gentlemen. Yeah, Claire, you have a question. No question? Oh, okay. Mike.
Yeah, maybe Claire's lost his sound. So hey, just to clarify here, the build is currently underway. Do you need the physical money now or a commitment of that money at some point in the future?
We could, it would always be nice to have the commitment now, but it's also we've got in mind we are over a 2-year build. So if it was coming in the future, that would be, we go with that as well, really. What we're trying to do, the whole strategy here is we're just trying to make sure there is rental stock available for those who need it.
Right, so there is some flexibility there. Thank you for that.
There is, of course, the option, Councillor, that fund one now and fund one next year too.
I want to look after Ken's health, look after his heart.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not quite. Do you have a question, Claire? I see your sound is working now. You do, great. Way you go. Oh, no, you're still on mute, Claire, somehow.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't unmute myself before, but yeah, challenges. Yeah, thanks very much for your presentation, and you've really given us an excellent idea of the good work that Resthaven has done. So my question is, are you asking other people other than the Waipa Council to help you out so that yeah, you know, like the case you make, you know, like social housing, and have you approached Aura or even some philanthropic funders in the Waikato who have said that they want to work in the affordable housing space? And I'm also was a bit surprised that you didn't provide, you know, your financial details as well, so that we can see what funding you already have and just how critical it is you need, yeah, the support of council.
First of all, we have our own fundraising arm, the Cambridge Resthaven Foundation, and we are looking to actually enable them to do fundraising ventures to help with fit outs. As you'd be aware, this is a major build, an extremely major build, and the total cost of the stage 1 is 36 million, of which we have borrowed to do so. Okay, so we have taken on risk as a community trust board to do that. It's a calculated risk. It's not frivolous by any means. It's been a long process to get us to this point. The Livingston Builders local firm is on site doing the build as we speak. They've just started this week. So as you can see, a community trust with good governance, because we've changed our ORA model to what was 60-40 split. We're now 50-50 split with regard to capital sharing. So once the unit is sold, the capital gain is shared 50-50. That is unlike most other, well, it is unlike the other operators in the local area where it is capital gain is not shared. So we've taken steps as governors to shore up our finances going forward, as well as the converting and becoming more relevant in the local aged care provider market in Cambridge, like John mentioned, bringing care to your home. So you'll move into Resthaven, you won't go into care, care will come to you. So it's a different sort of a model that we are doing here as well. I'll hand over to John or David.
No, that's got nothing there.
Okay, but nothing more to add. Yes.
Okay, Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good day, guys. I just wondered whether I should have declared a conflict of interest, because, as Kevin mentioned, there were a group of people who actually were involved in the selection of the new board of Resthaven. But I'm just going to put that to one side, because I would like to say that I think Resthaven is unique, but very much in Cambridge. It's a community asset, and I really support the development that's going on there. I was at the Karakia, as you know, last week. I'm very impressed with what's going on, and certainly I would support any way in which we as council can be involved. So I look forward to seeing how this discussion goes.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have any more questions for the Resthaven presentation? No. Okay. Oh, sorry, Jim.
It wasn't a question, Andrew. I'm happy to move the recommendation A, but I wouldn't want to see B included there. I'd like to see the B part of the recommendation looking at alternative means of funding and whether the pension housing reserve can be used for this purpose.
I'd support you and second that, Jim.
Okay, before we go there, I have hands up from Ken and then Claire. Ken.
Yeah, so through the chair, obviously in listening into the conversation this afternoon, I have actually drafted a potential substitute clause B. Would you like to hear that? Would you like to hear that now, or?
Yes, please.
Okay, so B, and obviously this is coming from the Finance and Corporate Committee. My suggestion is that B says require staff to give this matter further consideration and report back further on this matter as part of the annual plan deliberation process to be conducted by the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee in May 2022. So I mean, your worship, I haven't specifically referenced the alternative funding mechanisms, but of course we have noted those this afternoon. So we will come back specifically to those deliberations on this matter with a potential funding solution as part of that.
Thanks,
okay, yeah.
Ken, and through you, Andrew, I'm happy for that to be the recommendation B.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Ken, and the discussion. I'd certainly personally be pleased to have some time to consider this. There's while there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Resthaven's doing a wonderful job and they're a very worthy group in our community, we do have to think about precedent and just make sure we're not doing a knee-jerk and ad hoc sort of thing. And I think the annual plan deliberations are the right place to be considering that rather than here and now. So that's my 2 cents worth. Claire, you have a...
I'm happy for the changes proposed, but I would like to see more background financial information, and also, having a look at our pensioner housing policy and how that fits as well, so that we are not violating, any of those sort of agreed principles that we've sort of been operating under. Because I would like to, get a better idea of the wider context, are there other funding sources from out in the community and agencies that could have been approached, and what the result was, and sort of much deeper information, I guess. It's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Right, yes, thank you. Okay. Doesn't look like anyone else has got, we have a resolution, A, as per page 158, and B, as Ken has read out. Could you just read that again, Ken, please?
Yes, I certainly can, Chair. So I'm suggesting that B be worded as require staff to give this matter further consideration and report back further on this matter as part of the annual plan deliberation process to be conducted by the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee in May 2022.
Great. Okay. So Jim, you've moved A and B. Roger, you've seconded. I'll put the motion now. If there's no further discussion. No. Okay. So I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. It is carried. Okay. So thanks, Resthaven. I'm sorry I haven't got your names in front of me. I probably have actually.
It's all fine.
It's John and David at least, as someone else being. But thanks very much for your time and presentation, and thanks also for the great work you do for our community.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so we're now at where are we at? Guidelines for item 9. Guidelines for the Cambridge Town Hall and clock tower lighting. So this is who's presenting this? Amber.
Hi. Hopefully you guys
Hi.
can all hear and see me.
Yes, we can.
Before I start rabbiting on. Well, this is quite a light topic compared to what you guys have all been discussing this afternoon.
Yeah.
So
leave the bad jokes to me.
So we'll take the report as read, but I'll just discuss a couple of key points that I think are relatively important, and then hopefully we'll go into any questions and see where we get to. So I guess one of the key things with this report is that it has been through the Cambridge Community Board and has been endorsed by them for the criteria that we've formatted and the process moving forward with lighting of the Cambridge Town Hall and the clock tower. Previous to this has been a project managed by the properties team, but they've had a little shuffle up with their team over the recent months, and they've noticed an increase in requests that we didn't really have a set criteria to review against. And so this conversation got started. So yeah, we've done a bit of research around a few different places around the country that light different buildings and things like that, and formulated a criteria that we think best represents the type of requests that we've been seeing over the last few years. And moving forward, we are hopefully going to be having an online form available on our website, so members of the community have access to request lighting of these assets for a certain project or community engagement initiative. And once those requests are received, the communication and engagement team will receive those and work in with 2 key partners to this whole process. So the property team for the actual physical works, and then also the Cambridge, hopefully I get this right, Cambridge Town Hall Community Trust representative as well, moving forward, because we know that we need to make sure all conversations are really clear in that space moving forward with different uses of the town hall as those increase over time, and ensuring we're not having any crossovers with different activations within that one space. So we've had some great discussions with Kirsty from the Town Hall Trust. Looking forward to working with them moving forward, and the property team as they find their feet moving forward as well. So yeah, any questions, queries, go for gold.
Yep. Anyone got any questions on that? Jim?
Yeah, just a quick one, Andrew. Look, nothing wrong with the criteria, and it's only because I've just been involved in one really recently. I just wonder about the requirement for a 6-week notice period. If we delegate enough responsibility to staff, if it doesn't have to come to an agenda or anything like that, and the project I'm talking about is there's Cambridge High wanting to light up the town hall to recognise the war that's going on, started by Putin with the Ukraine. Look, it just seemed to me that if somebody comes on board, has got a good project that fits the criteria, then subject to you being able to get the right coloured bulbs and all those sorts of things, why do we need 6 weeks notice?
So for the teams that are involved working through this, that 6 weeks is a buffer. We would expect and hope that things could be tracked a lot quicker. But depending on what our workloads are between the communication and engagement team, the property team at the time, which are currently under-resourced while they work through some things, and the external party to council, it's just the 6 weeks is giving us a buffer to work through different teams. If we were in a busy period when we got a request, we can certainly shrink that down to maybe 4 weeks. And again, it's that buffer just to make sure that we are setting expectations early and not missing any opportunities if it comes down to workload, staffing and all that with different partners involved.
Okay. Lou.
Yeah, hi, through you, Andrew. Hi, Amber. How long does it actually take for the actual operation change the bulbs over? And the second thing was, does each organisation or each group actually fund the bulbs themselves? Is this through funding through us, or is it funded by the Hall Trust, or how is it funded?
The example given there with community groups requesting to light the town hall in certain colours, the costs will need to be absorbed by the requester. They could go out and get community funding from elsewhere. Community boards, as an example, businesses might sponsor it if they got approval, but they are required to find the funding to cover those costs. It's a couple $100. It's not a lot, but it is obviously can be a lot for community groups. So we would obviously help connect them with different funders moving forward if that comes to that. But we do believe it's a pretty palatable cost. In terms of the timeframes for the contractor, I don't know the technical side of it. That is something the property team will look after moving forward. And it does come down to finding a certain bulb colour if they don't have it in stock. And obviously what their workload is like at the time too, depending on the electrician getting out with a 2-day notice, or again, if we have that longer lead in time, we've got time to notify them of our process or what the request is for them to actually get a team on board and ready to execute by a set date that the requester is asking.
Yeah, the idea that I asked that question was that there would have to be a health and safety plan, possibly for each change, and you know, that register each time, or is that going to have just one standing up?
Ken might be able to add to this one.
Yeah, look. So through the chair, unfortunately, I can't help with really specific detail there. But look, we use the same supplier. local electrical supplies firm to do this work. So they have got good experience, in regard to doing these light ups, and look, they can respond pretty quickly generally. In regard to the recent Ukraine one that I was quite involved with, in fact the current Ukraine one, I should say, the only hold up there was they just didn't have yellow bulbs available. They had the blue ones, but they didn't have the yellow bulbs and filters. So there was around about a two or three business day wait for those yellow bulbs and filters to come. As soon as they came, they actually went out and actually installed it the following day. So so look, they're very familiar. They can do the job really easily, as long as they've got the right coloured bulbs and available in their stock.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Liz and then Susan.
Thanks, Andrew. Hey, Amber, I just wanted to say thanks. I thought the criteria was really good. Obviously, there's a lot of thought that's gone through into it, and also the community board, I guess, have had input in it as well, which I'm really pleased to see. So, look, I think it's really great. Probably the only thing is just that 6 weeks. I think perhaps it doesn't need to be the word must. Perhaps there's an alternative word that can be put in there, just so that people aren't put off by the fact they might have missed the deadline and don't even try to make contact with council and think that it can't be done, because quite possibly it could be done. So yeah, it'd be good if we could just add some flexibility around that wording.
Cool. Definitely can, either with the 4 to 6 weeks time frame if everyone wants that amended, or around the word must, either way.
Right, Susan.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Amber. Hey, just a quick question. The list there of the preferential dates you have, you said may include. It's not exhaustive, I take it. There are other dates that could potentially be deemed acceptable. Is
Yes,
that right?
I think those dates are absolutely reviewable and can be added to. The reason we've put them in there in particular is we wouldn't want to see perhaps a community request come in that's the complete opposite of what that date already significantly is in our country, and that list will possibly change and grow over the years.
Okay,
it's not the be all end all.
I guess the one that sprang to mind for me was Suffrage Day, which is often commemorated or acknowledged by purple, lighting up things purple. So if it was to be exhaustive, that'd be obviously something that I'd suggest we should add to that list. And with that in mind, I'm really thinking of that because I recall in a few years ago, we had the Tilmutu Library lit up with purple lights. The team were very creative and went out and found some not glad wrap.
Yeah,
cellophane, purple cellophane
yeah.
to put over the up lights, and lit the side of the library up purple, which made me wonder, is this relating solely to the Cambridge Town Hall and Clock Tower, or would this extend to other council-owned assets like the Tilmutu Library?
As far as I'm aware, with my background knowledge to some of this, the property team hasn't indicated that they've had public requests for the library facility in Te Awamutu to be lit up. I don't recall that happening. Like I obviously must have been around at the time, but it must have been done perhaps through the library staff directly, as opposed to a community request that came through. They've obviously had the easier ability to cover those lights than what we do with the light bulbs having to be interchanged at the hall and the clock. So this report is currently just for the 2 assets in Cambridge, because that's where the property team has been receiving the public inquiries the most, completely.
I wonder if common sense would suggest that it should potentially extend to other assets owned by council, where considered reasonable, like that one. I'm not sure what the situation is with our chambers. I don't think people would necessarily want that to be lit per se, but certainly the lighting of the Tilmutu Library has happened in the past, and as you've suggested, it was obviously an in-house sort of thing, but it's possible potentially with the discussion being raised now that it might be something that community and the Tilmutu side may wish to consider. So I don't know whether there's any interest in extending that to that asset or not. I'm not sure people's thoughts are on that. It just sort of seems unusual to limit it to only two.
It would be a discussion to be had with the property manager, I think, with regard to the facility, and the librarians as the people in that space. I mean, I can certainly pass it on to those, the powers that be, and then it would be around who would be interchanging the cellophane and that kind of stuff as well, because obviously we wouldn't necessarily have a contractor out for that, but whether or not the library staff or property would be involved, that would be a discussion for them.
I agree with you, Susan, because I don't think we knew that we could change the lights in the library anyway to make them different colours. So if we have a policy that covers the whole district and then, have something in place to do the library, would be great.
Yep, sure. Okie dokie. So you've had your piece, Marcus. You don't need to hand up anymore. Mike.
Oh, sorry. I guess this alludes to me an issue here in terms of the whole lead-in time and all the rest of it is the lack of technology, probably around the district in terms of lighting up things. But I know this particular library and clock tower have been on the radar for a while, but nothing's been done in terms of the technology there to do this remotely. Which would save probably a hell of a lot of cost moving forward. It's something as a council I think we need to consider. Just have it tucked in the back of our minds for a couple of years' time, and I think the community board do too, because the technology is there now, obviously, through LEDs and through Wi-Fi, just to flick a switch from wherever in the world to light this thing up in whatever colour or colours we wish. So. Yeah, I really like to. I know it's separate to this, but it is part of a whole probably lead-in time and why there needs to be so much lead-in time, etc. I think this can be reduced with some improvements in technology in the future.
Luke, sorry.
Actually, Mike just stole my, it was LEDs and actually having a controlling unit to change it. We already have, by the way, lights in Te Awamutu down on the tree, the Christmas lights. And, we do have this sort of thing. Would this policy be better as a complete district policy? Just have it in place in case somebody does it. Doesn't necessarily have to be the library, but somebody might want to just, for example, light up one of our public buildings or building. And we have a policy there that we can do it.
Through the chair, if I may, we would probably want to take that to the Te Awamutu Community Board to give them the same attention we've had to this for the Cambridge Community Board, but it's definitely a good suggestion.
Yeah, that sounds to me like a very good idea. In the meantime, there's nothing to stop us passing the recommendation that we have in front of us, I would think, unless there's rooted objection. No? Any further discussion? If not, I'll ask if there is a mover for.
I'm happy to move.
And Claire's second. So I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Contrary, no. It is carried. Thank you. And yeah, if you could look at maybe talking to the Te Awamutu Community Board, terrific.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Great. Okay, we'll move on to item 10, the 8 months report to February. I see Nada lurking there in the back, in the foreground now. Hi, Nada.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just take the report as read, given the time. So we'll just go over some key things and then open it up to questions. So the key results at the 28th of February, the forecasted operating surplus of 30.2 million, and that's compared to a budget of 39.7 million. The capital expenditure is now forecast to be 143.9 million, and that was compared to the budget of 183.7 million. The capital expenditure to date is 60.7 million, and that's 42% of the current forecast. In the Treasury report, our external loan balance at 28th of February was 129.5 million. The year-end balance is forecasted to be 172.5 million, and that was compared to the original forecast of 242.9 million. And the table below shows the movements, and I just want to note that on the bottom of that, and where it says increase in cash balance, that's actually decrease in cash balance, sorry. So then that would take us to, align with the 4.79k that's stated in the balance sheet. I'll just pass to Amy now, and she's just got some points that she wants to make on the performance measures.
Hi everyone. So yes, just in relation to the council's non-financial reporting, just a few key notes that we have 69% of our performance measures which are currently considered to be on track, which is a slight improvement from the 4-month report where it was sitting around the 64% mark. So we've had some slight improvements in the the roads and footpaths area, and also in the water treatment and supply group of activities as well. So COVID restrictions, they continue to impact the level of service results, particularly those surrounding the visitation of council heritage facilities, with 6 out of 7 of the heritage measures currently off track or at risk of not meeting the end of year target. All exceptions are outlined under each group of activities, so you can read more there. We also have the progress against council strategic priorities outlined in the report as well. Those are on page 246. There's a few which are currently off track, generally due to timing issues at the moment. You'll see on page 236 of the agenda, there's also a non-financial performance overview on there. And that has a few key highlights for the past 4 months as well. But happy to take any questions in that space as well.
Is there any questions?
Sorry, I was on mute then. I was talking. Just before we go to Claire and Roger, who have questions, the reduction in the cash surplus is mainly due to the DC income being less than forecast in the period, but that is just going to be a timing issue, isn't it? It's okay. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, mainly all that stuff that's been moved out.
Okay. No, great. Thanks for that. Claire.
Thanks, Nada, or Amy. I was going to talk questions about the non-financial measures, and I'm looking at page 259 of our agenda, or page 43 of the report, and I've chosen that community services and facilities page because the last sentence is, in summary, there are a total of 33 performance measures for the group, of which 11 are considered on track, which means you could assume that 22 are off track. But in fact, most of them are annual measures. So I disagree with saying that all the ones that we haven't reported on or are on track must be off track. I think it would be better to state that something like, well, I don't know if you could say that anything that is an annual report is considered to be on track. Yeah, it's just that people just picking up that statistic, that number, would say, oh, council's hopeless because they've got so many off track and the councillors don't seem to be worrying about it.
I can understand that wording may lead to the presumption that those that are not mentioned are off track. So we can certainly review that wording and look to include a separate figure around the annuals, or to include those in those that are on track.
Okay, thanks. And then on page 260 of the agenda, or page 44 of the report, so this is community services again, and there's a measure about Lake Naroto,
yes.
and visitors numbers have been impacted by COVID alert levels and traffic light restrictions, but we've also had a closure of the lake for public health reasons. And I thought that that should be stated. Yeah, because it's not the whole picture. And then further down with Te Arawai Journeys, it says the videos weren't operational throughout January. This is the first that we've heard about it from a councillor level. Like, do you know what was behind them not being operational?
Hannah, you may be able to answer this. I believe it came back to there was a miscommunication around the subscription. Is that correct? Maybe I'm not sure if we've still got Hannah. We don't have Hannah anymore. Yes, I'm sorry. I believe there was a miscommunication around the subscription or the type of subscription that we have, and that led to the videos not being operational. But I can certainly get some clarification around that if you'd like.
It'd be really great if we could have some clarification, because we wouldn't want that, I mean, it'd be pretty frustrating for people to be wanting to access it because it's a mobile phone kind of setup. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it was a period of around 3 weeks, I believe, from memory, that they weren't operational.
And then the last point, which is probably just a typo thing, that's on page 268 or page 52 of the agenda. And it's to do with capital variances. It's point number 3. It's about in the middle. It talks about 215,000 was brought forward for Gold Road. That's T8 wastewater provision. I think that's Golf Road. I can't think of any roads in TA that are Gold Road.
Yeah, that would be a typo. Yeah, I still can't even pinpoint it. Oh, there it is. Yeah, no, that would be Golf Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we get to this 8-month report, there's a lot of capital variances, and I would much prefer to have the reporting of those variances like in an Excel spreadsheet, because you list them all, and we've probably seen a lot of them in previous reports.
Absolutely.
And also it's probably easier to read it actually from our point of view. I'll leave it with you guys. How you want to handle it. Thank you.
Thanks. No, we can definitely look at that, because it is just kind of a whole lot of jumble to shift through. And
it's not another balance, like there's a plus and a minus within each of the segments as well. And so if it was in a spread, we could see how it all works more quickly, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'll look at that.
It may be, Nada, that it's actually could possibly work well for you time-wise as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
You'd have a look at that. That'd be great. Thanks. Roger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Nada, and I think the whole team at Waipa District, this report and the number of variations where you got plus and minus, it just shows how difficult it is to build a budget that's going to move forward into a period when we've got so many challenges and variations as to what we can do and what we can't do and what is available, what isn't available. It's like having a crystal ball, and the crystal ball is just so hazy. So I really do appreciate the challenge that you've got. And as was said, in many cases, it's plus and minus. Some instances, it's a deferred timing. And then, of course, you've got all the challenges of supply chain, which is going to be around, I think, for quite a few months to come. I do have a question, and it's very much of Ken. And seeing the variation in the surplus, does that have any impact on our future planning for, say, next year?
So through the chair, so seeing the variation in the surplus, so in terms of the Yeah, in terms of the surplus, Councillor Gordon, yeah, I mean, you do need to be mindful that, yeah, so actually I'm just having a look right now, actually, in terms of the budget was 49 million. It's now a full year forecast of 39 million, so a $10 million reduction. I assume that's what you're referring to.
Yep.
This is on page 228 of the agenda.
Yep.
So look, yeah, I guess you do need to be very mindful in terms of, yeah, you know, there are a number of non-cash items in there. There are also, and in fact, very relevant to the discussion. So things like development contributions, which of course are cash, but yeah, I can see that that $8 million of that decrease relates, or of that reforecast, relates to development contributions, and of course that is ring fence money, and of course what we have done is slowed down the capital expenditure as well to compensate. Yeah, you know, we know that development has been delayed. Yeah, we have delayed the capex that those DCs are funding. So yeah, so look, fundamentally, in regard to your question, no, look, it's not causing us undue concern in regard to the implications for the annual plan. Yeah, I think yeah, you know, in terms of some of the key cash flow numbers, you know, those are very much rates funded cash flow numbers. Those are very much or certainly broadly in line with expectations. It's some of those more ring fenced monies that that are potentially an issue, and like I say, we've got ability to mitigate in those areas.
Good, thank you.
Sorry about that. Claire, do you have your hand up still? No. Okay. All right. If there's no further questions, thanks for those explanations, team. We have a recommendation on page 214. A and B. Do I have a mover, please? Roger, thank you. And Claire, second. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Now, I see Phil there. I'm just going to put a resolution to go exclude the public, to go public excluded. So I'll do that now. Could I have a mover, please?
I'll move.
Who said that?
Me.
Roger. And Bruce seconded. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.